Coming up on this edition of Inside Bellingham, we're going to take a ride with the Bellingham Police Party Patrol. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? But maybe not. And we'll be visiting Post Point. It's much, much more than just a sewage treatment plant. And now is a great time to visit Beach Bellingham. Okay, not really a beach, but it's a lot of fun on a cold winter day. All this and more, much, much more, right here on Inside Bellingham. Hi, and welcome to Inside Bellingham. I'm Doug Waldo. Can you figure out where we are today? Well, you might not recognize this place, but it's one of Bellingham's biggest parks. Probably not one that most people think of as a park. More about this a little later. You know, in a place like this, it's very easy to find solitude and quiet on a cold winter day. And most people feel like they have a right to quiet and peace in their neighborhoods, too. But large drinking parties can be very disturbing to those who live nearby. So, Bellingham has been working to cut down on problems associated with alcohol abuse parties, drinking in public, minors in possession of alcoholic beverages, through a series of alcohol emphasis patrols. If you decide to have a blowout party in your neighborhood, someone might just come knocking on your door.
It's like we have a party with people in the backyard.
Bellingham Police Department! Noise complaint! Ocean 167, we could get some of the units to the front. I'm at the back. Bellingham Police, got a complaint about noise. Somebody who lives here? I need somebody who lives here to come out about the noise complaint. I understand, I will get a search warrant.
The purpose of the Bellingham Police Department's Party Patrol, or Emphasis Patrols, is to curb underage drinking problems and the fallout in neighborhoods that's associated with those drinking problems.
Okay. Hi. ID, please. Do you live here?
No, I don't.
ID, please.
Fine. I haven't been drinking though, so.
ID.
That's fine.
No, we're going to check IDs here. Let's go.
Here's my ID, and you can give me a breathalyzer if you like.
We were finding that blocks of neighborhoods were having some pretty huge impacts because of these large parties. There'd be vandalism at the neighbors' residences. People wouldn't be able to get the proper rest to go to sleep. And when the Bellingham Police Department would respond, we were, of course, inadequately staffed to deal with 350 kids in a house and having alcohol on top of that. Two police officers can have a difficult time making order out of that.
There you go. Go! It's the time to leave. Party's over with.
I think everybody would be able to give you a list of things that they would associate with problem drinking or a problem house that harbors problem drinking. And that would be kind of just a disregard for others' peace and repose. Loud music, loud talking, large groups of people in the early morning hours, standing around outside, smoking and laughing, and basically keeping up neighbors that might have something they need to do in the morning, such as get up and go to work. There will be litter problems associated with those kinds of problem drinking houses. There will be vandalism to fencing and trees and neighbors' mailboxes and those kinds of issues.
194 Bellingham locals.
In addition to focusing on neighborhoods that are impacted by our major university, we also take our resources, especially the emphasis patrol resources, and we deploy them in the central business district after 1 o'clock in the morning, and to kind of keep a lid on the disorder that can be occurring in the downtown area. We focus on the same kinds of violations that we do in those neighborhoods, like drinking in public, urinating in public, disorderly conduct, minors in possession of alcohol.
Drinking in public. That's a $101 fine.
It's not a misdemeanor or anything?
Nope.
It's less rainy.
There you go. Is that it's a dipper, eh?
It's a dipper. Drinking in public. Okay, the 3 ways that you can take care of the ticket are listed here on the back. You have 15 days to read through those 3 ways.
Yep.
And send it in to the address that I marked on the front.
Gotcha, thanks.
There's your identification badge.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna have you sign that ticket. Okay. By signing that ticket, you're not admitting guilt. You're just promising to appear in court on October 27th.
I can hardly wait.
At 9:45 in the morning. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to keep this underneath the cover here, so you can just let down on the seat there for me. And this is not admitting guilt. It's saying you're receiving a citation for minor possession by consumption, and you agree to take care of it as directed on your copy. We're in partnership with the Campus Community Coalition, which is an organization that's housed at Western Washington University. They're a research group, and their goal is to reduce underage drinking and problem drinking with their student body population.
So how many beers did your guy have? How many beers did my guy have? My guy had 5 Busch Light, 5 Busch.
The police department focuses on those times of the year when it's most likely that we're going to have large parties, or we're going to have crime and disorder issues in our neighborhoods or in the central business district. And it's no secret that oftentimes will be at the start of each quarter of Western Bellingham School District and some of the other colleges in the community. When we respond to an underage drinking party that may have 40, 50, 60 minors in possession out of some houses, we need the kinds of numbers as far as officers go that can process that scene appropriately and thoroughly.
Party's over. Nothing good tonight?
As an advisory to neighbors or folks that have had their peace and repose disturbed by a large gathering, a large party next door or on your block, we need you to call 911 when that's in progress, when that's occurring. And finally, we would ask that you become a victim in the complaint process, so that we have somebody independent, somebody that's actually offended by what's happening, to step forward and help us prosecute that individual crime.
Did you realize that Bellingham has an immense compilation of historic photographs? The collection includes photos of our fair city from as far back as 1880 and is maintained by Jeff Jewell, a photo archivist. He describes his work as the best job in the city.
Basically, I facilitate the public's use of the Whatcom Museum's photo archives. So I help them find pictures of things that they're looking for. This is Malcolm Brown.
Really?
We have a lot of genealogists, people looking for pictures of their family. Other people just looking for a fun photograph of old Bellingham or Whatcom County. About 175,000, give or take a couple. And we get more all the time. Each year, probably upwards of 5,000 new photos come in. I really enjoy people's enthusiasm for subjects that I don't necessarily have a personal interest in, at least at first, but their enthusiasm is very contagious. So somebody's into this particular thing, they just share that with me, and I gain a whole new insight and appreciation for that subject. Bellingham history or Whatcom County history is not something they teach at school. You can't get a degree in it. It has to be something that you really feel passionate about. My wife and I were working rather low-paying jobs. We didn't have a lot of money to spend on entertainment. So basically our entertainment came about walking around town or biking around town. And you just tend to notice things. And then if you have curiosity, it's like, why are there railroad tracks in the alley between Railroad and State? Why is this curb say Elk Street when it's State Street? There are so many fantastic images in this collection, and Bellingham, Whatcom County has been blessed with some really great photographers. We are open to the public 3 days a week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 1 to 5. It's a great rainy day activity, and we have lots of rainy days here, so there's no excuse not to come in and have a look.
Have you figured out where we are yet? Here's a clue. Do you have a burning question to ask about city services or policies? Well, we have a regular feature on Inside Bellingham, a segment called Ask the City, where we direct questions from our viewers to the folks who can answer them best.
Hi, I'm Brian Flanley, Public Information Officer for the Bellingham Fire Department. One of the most common questions we receive is, what should I do when I hear an emergency vehicle approaching? Well, the state law is pretty clear-cut on this. It says you will pull to the right and stop when you hear an emergency vehicle, and you're not allowed to continue until that vehicle has passed you by. What we're finding, though, in reality, things are a little bit different. We try to give you plenty of warning when we're coming up on an intersection. We're showing our lights, we have our sirens, but at the same time, I realize that there are distractions. You have other passengers in the vehicle, there's music, and the occasional odd cell phone to contend with. What happens a lot of times is the first awareness that a person has of an emergency vehicle behind them is this big red thing that they see in their rearview mirror. That's when panic comes in, and that's when people start doing irrational actions. And trust me, we see some irrational things out there. So what I'd like to do to you today is show you a little bit of our view on responding to an emergency. This particular unit is based at our Demon Road station. It's about 10 feet high, 31 feet long, and weighs 21 tons. It takes an amazing amount of effort to get this vehicle to stop. That's why it is so important that we have a clear path when we're going out to an emergency. Despite all these devices, what we still ultimately depend on is the cooperation of the people out and around us. State law does say that when an emergency vehicle approaches, you have to pull to the right and stop and wait until the vehicle has passed you. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen. We have people who will pull to the right, and they're not aware of the need that we have to make a right-hand turn. So what we're showing you right here is what things look like from the cab. We have a vehicle directly in front of us. He's going to be pulling to the right, as he should. And if he continues going at this point, when we make our right-hand turn, then we'd have an accident. That's why it's necessary for him to pull to the right and stop and wait until we go by. So when you're out driving in your own vehicle, remember, listen for the approach of an emergency vehicle. Always keep looking around. Remember the state law. When you hear a vehicle, pull to the right and stop. Wait until we've gone past you. On behalf of the Bellingham Fire Department, we'd like to thank you for helping us to help your neighbors.
I'm Andy Day, Assistant Chief of Bellingham Fire Department. Recent hurricanes along the Gulf Coast serve as a reminder to all of us about the need to prepare for disasters before they strike. Like the Gulf Coast, Bellingham too is vulnerable to natural disasters. In our case, it's that of a sudden, powerfully occurring earthquake. Disasters can be expected to disrupt normal community functions, including food distribution, government services, and financial services, even getting money out of an ATM. Make plans to sustain you and your family for a bare minimum of 3 days. Preparing for a week or longer of disruption would be wise. There are 2 key elements of the plan. First of all, develop a disaster kit which has food and water, medications, and first aid supplies. Next, develop a communication plan which will enable you to contact your friends and family both locally and out of town. For more information about developing a disaster plan, contact the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office Division of Emergency Management at 676-6681. Thank you.
You've probably figured out by now that we're at Bayview Cemetery, resting place of many icons of Bellingham's history, including one of our founding fathers, Henry Roeder. Bayview has been a city-owned cemetery and park since 1888. Now, this unique property and the folks who rest here are cared for by Marcia Wozni and her staff.
I've been a steward of public lands for most of my adult life, and now I'm a steward of souls, not only public lands. And that, I didn't think there could be more icing on the cake until I came up here. We estimate at this point we probably have 30,000 people here in Bayview. If you ask me, there's at least another 200 years plus available here. Of course, our angel is probably one of our most famous landmarks here in Bayview, and the story behind the angel is tied up partly in urban myth and partly in fact, and she's become an icon of the cemetery and represents many generations. You know, originally Mr. Bland, who that is the family monument for, he purchased that monument for his wife who died in a young age, and he had that shipped over from Europe. But since then, and even at those times, there were stories of crying people at that gravesite and hearing noises, and to this day, the biggest question I ever get during Halloween is, where's Angel Eyes? And is she okay? And you know, has she said anything lately or spoken up? And she is beautiful. It's an amazing statue, and she's very tall, so when you go up to see her, you kind of get that wide-eyed kid look and go, wow, through there. Someone once asked me, what is this all about? What is this thing about cemeteries and people being buried? And I said, you know, I had to learn that. And what I found out, it's not about necessarily who's here. It's about who's left and where they can go to connect. And our goal here is a park. We want people to use this, you know, and if I might go as far as to say recreationally, in a respectful manner. And I think that's real doable up here. I think it continues to be a commitment on the part of the city to the citizens of Bellingham, and it's important to us. It's a promise, I think, that was made a long time ago, and one that we'd like to keep making. When people pass away, the one last greatest thing that they do for us is they give us the opportunity to come back together.
This is Veterans Memorial at Bayview Cemetery. Another regular feature here on Inside Bellingham is Try a Park. Now, it's no secret that Bellingham has great parks and trails. Our public green space is extensive and enviable. And yet, to enjoy one of the most popular recreational spots in town, you'll have to head for some place other than one of our urban forests. Kim Spence introduces us to one of Bellingham's best places.
When most people think about recreation in Bellingham, they think about trails, bikes, and boats. But did you know that one of the most used recreational facilities in town is actually inside? Sure, you can see scuba divers and kayakers here, but more often it's kids floating on inner tubes, lap swimmers, or people soaking in the hot tub. By now you've probably guessed it. I'm talking about the Arne Hanna Aquatic Center.
We have our leisure pool. For this area, it's the most unique, which is the small beach area pool. And it has our fountain. And then, of course, a 135-foot water slide that goes out of the building and circles around and comes back in. Then we have our lap pool, which is 8 lanes, 25 yards. We have a dive tank. And then we have our hydrotherapy pool that seats 20 people very comfortably, and it has jets that bubble up.
You have a lot of different user groups. Can you describe some of those?
We have anywhere from 500 to 700 people a day. We have our adaptive aquatics program, and we have usually Western Washington University students who come in and work one-on-one with our special needs groups. We also have kayaker groups that come here and use the facility on a regular basis, so we have open kayak. We have our Bellingham Bay swim team. Our swim lesson program is quite large. Beginner one is our parent and child program, and of course they have the zero depth pool that they start in, so they're able to walk around or crawl around themselves.
So tell us, who was Arne Hanna?
He was a city council member for many years, and he was a great supporter of actually having this facility built. When he passed away, the city council wanted to honor him, and so they decided to rename the Aquatic Center in his name. When we first opened the facility, he was the first person to officially go down the water slide. He was dressed up in a tuxedo with shorts, and it was the most special event to have him go down there.
Doug Lafferty is a park champion for the Arne Hanna Aquatic Center. He's passionate about the pool and uses it frequently.
It's not that expensive to come to the pool. It's a great place. You have fun with the family. We can come here all year round. They offer childcare classes in the small pool, so you don't have to worry about your kids. You can bring them in with you. They taught me how to swim correctly. Before, I always swam with my head up. I couldn't put it underwater. I was afraid, didn't know how to breathe. Came here and swimming like a pro. I love this place. This is fun.
When's the last time you jumped off a diving board or flew down a water slide? You say you've been wanting to perfect your front crawl stroke, or wondered about water aerobics, or have even considered swimming competitively on a swim team. Why not check out the Arne Hanna Aquatic Center? It's open every day. On weekdays, it opens at 5:30 in the morning and closes at 9 at night. For a detailed schedule, stop by or call the pool or visit the city's website.
Since the early 1900s, the wildlife habitat in and around Post Point Lagoon has experienced impacts associated with human activity, the construction of the Burlington Northern Railroad, the operation of the city's wastewater treatment plant, and the creation of one of Bellingham's most popular off-leash dog parks. Well, recently the city has begun restoring the ecology of Post Point Lagoon and creating a healthier, more productive habitat for wildlife while still allowing for recreational use.
This spot was originally part of Bellingham Bay, and in the early 1900s the Burlington Northern Railroad came in and built a trestle that spanned this lagoon, and later in the 1930s they came in and filled it in with this riprap, and so it enclosed this small lagoon, creating what you see today. Then in the 70s the Post Point wastewater treatment facility was built, and all of this land surrounding it was acquired as part of that project. In 2003 the Lummi tribe was part of a comprehensive study of Bellingham Bay, and they found that Chinook salmon, which is an endangered species, was utilizing this lagoon for rearing their young. I'm a marine biologist, and I have been dedicating my time to studying the health of the lagoon. I've been looking into all of the factors that are making this place available and healthy for the salmon and for the herons to live and persist here in this area.
And this area, the lagoon, the upland, the point as a whole, was identified as one of the most significant and important habitats in all of the city. And one of the reasons for that was this interface between the marine shoreline and the upland, and the richness of this particular site in terms of species and habitat.
This project came about, well, it's been in the works for quite a few years. The city's applied for numerous grants to fund this project, mostly salmon surfboard grants, and it's never been funded, and the city just decided that it's an important enough project to us and to the community as a whole that we would just go ahead and pay for it ourselves. And it's been really cost effective because the Washington Conservation Corps is such a wonderful partnership between the Department of Ecology and the city and the federal AmeriCorps program. The city has 2 crews that we sponsor, and we've had the crews come in and do all sorts of work in here. This is the first phase, what you're seeing now, and then the phase 2 will happen next summer. So phase 1 so far has been placing large woody debris around the lagoon and removing invasive species like blackberries, planting native plants. We've removed 2 culverts in the little stream over here and bridged one of them, so we're still allowing access for people to this area.
The end goal of this is to create a healthier, more productive system that can support especially the endangered species and the herons, but also all of the other species that utilize this lagoon. It's basically to protect the lagoon from further disturbance and make sure it's an available resource for our important species.
Now, the great blue heron is the species of interest for me, since I have been contracted with the city. I work with the city in directing and managing the stewardship of the Post Point heron colony. The herons utilize this lagoon and the nearby shoreline with great frequency, particularly during the breeding season. They have a nesting colony right here, which is the only nesting heron colony in the entire city.
I'd like to think that this could benefit both the salmon and the native plants and animals and the people and the dogs. I think that it's a place that could be used for multiple uses. We just need to be careful that we don't encroach on the species like the Chinook salmon and the herons, which are both an endangered species and a species of concern here in Washington State.
Well, that's our show for January. We had a really great time putting it together for you. If you have any feedback for us or even ideas for segments, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us through the BTV10 website, which, by the way, is also a good place to find out more about Inside Bellingham and all the programming on BTV10. This edition of Inside Bellingham will air several times each week through the month of January, so tell your friends. I'm Doug Waldo. For everyone at the City of Bellingham, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again. Take care.